Good morning, class and students. Today again we are back with our English literature lessons through online class. Hope you all are safe and fine at home and continuing with your taught lessons, revisions, and your homeworks and assignments. Keep doing, keep going. Meanwhile, we'll today see a new lesson uh, which are left in our English 2. If you remember last time I had completed a poem that was Abu Ben Adam. Uh, Now in our poetry sections we are left with only one more poem to complete, and that will bring an end to our poetry syllabus. Meanwhile, we'll see today a new story because there are still three more stories to be done. Last time we had completed one chapter, The Little Match Girl, written by Hans Christian Andersen. So today we're going to see the next chapter out of the three left we have in our syllabus. So let us take an interesting and easy to understand chapter through online class. Uh, to come to this chapter, if you remember last time we had done a poem Nine Gold Medals written by David Lee Roth. There we saw uh, uh, about the athlete who was the youngest and how he had fallen in the track, and the remaining athletes helped him to reach to the finishing line, and the all nine athletes were awarded the gold medals for the event. Uh, so keeping that in our mind, we'll today see um, a chapter which is dedicated to uh, track and field event. So we'll again talk about some sports, games and sports we have to play. Just keeping in the mind of that poem we have done. Today we will take up a similar chapter in the form of a story given in our syllabus. So the chapter is My Greatest Olympic Prize, written by Jesse Owens. So we'll see the experience of the author Jesse Owens uh, in his writing My Greatest Olympic Prize. So what was his greatest experience that he had to undergo in this Olympic winning prize? We'll have to understand his experience in the story. So let us see. This is a personal experience of the author Jesse Owens. So first of all, let us get ready with a pencil as usual, because whenever you come across difficult words, you can underline those words and then jot them down in the simplest meaning, which I'm going to explain uh, while explaining the chapter. So so that you can prepare yourself, um, reading with the simplest meanings given to you, which would be easier for you to understand. So let's now see. Now, first and foremost, talking about Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens is a nickname given to the author, James Cleveland Owens. So you see, James Cleveland Owens is the original name of the author Jesse Owens. So why is James Cleveland Owens called Jesse Owens? Is because James, the first letter J, and Cleveland's first letter C becomes JC. So when he's uh, abbreviated, it becomes Jesse Owens. So he is then ultimately called Jesse Owens. It became Jesse Owens. So that is how his name became Jesse Owens. So let us now see Jesse Owens, the great athlete in the field of track and field event. The great person Jesse Owens was born on 12th September in the year 1913, when the world was experiencing the First World War. So that time he was born in Alabama, which is in US, and he happens to be the son of a farmer and the grandson of a slave. So you see, he came from a very poor family, a farmer's house. His grandfather was a slave, but look at his effort that he made in his life to come out so successful and not only become a great athlete in the world, but also one of the renowned writers in the world. So this is about Jesse Owens. So the special thing about Jesse Owens is he is remembered as one of the greatest, uh, you can say, uh, mm, athletes in the field of Olympic history, because he was the person who backed 4 gold medals in his name in just one Olympic Games. Uh, he stood winning in 100-meter race, 200-meter race, broad jump, or we can also call it long jump, and then 4 into 100-meter relay race. So these 4 medals he won for himself, for his country, America. So he mm, bagged these medals in 1936 uh, Summer Olympics at, um, or rather say, in Berlin, in Germany. So that made a historical impact in a man to win 4 gold medals for himself in one Olympic. So this is the greatest achievement made by Jesse Owens. So here in the chapter there are his personal experiences where he found a lot of difficulties in winning one of such medals in his name, and that he has given as an experience um, in his writing uh, in the syllabus, as we are going to take up today. So see, uh, here when it comes to Germany, we can't forget the name Adolf Hitler. So at that time, in 1936, Hitler was at his own regime, and he was claiming himself. It was his a myth that his Nazis are the best athletes in the world and far more superior to the blacks or the Africans. But it was Jesse Owens who, being an Afro-American, totally shocked Hitler's opinion. So this is what he is going to tell us in this story, My Greatest Olympic Prize. So see, so as I told, Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals in his name um, in Berlin, 1936 Olympic Games. Um, there was particularly a person named Les Long um, in Germany who stood shoulder to shoulder with Jesse Owens, and it was because of Les Long. Uh, Jesse Owens was able to win the 4th gold medal in his name. So it tells us here that the games and sports that we play is not only a way where we can compete each other as rivals, but it also promotes friendship. This is what Jesse is also wanting to tell us in this story. So the friendship between Laslong and Jesse Owens, uh, you can say, generated at their first meeting in Berlin Olympics 1936, and the friendship remained very true, very fast. But Laslong was killed in the Second World War that took place in 1936 to 1945. So this is about what we are going to know in the chapter My Greatest Olympic Prize. So let us now see the story, My Greatest Olympic Prize, written by Jesse Owens. So this story tells the experience, the personal experience of Jesse Owens in Berlin, 1936 Summer Olympic Games. So see, so at the time, we know that there was a patriotic feelings, um, particularly among the Germans in Germany, because the Nazi head Adolf Hitler was promoting himself to the best what he would do for the world. So there was patriotic feelings among all the Germans, and even in the games and sports, the Germans were claiming themselves to be the best in winning the medals for themselves. So in this uh, uh, you can say particular time, we have Jesse Owens taking part from uh, the African mm, you can say it's a race or tribe in this Olympic game, and competing with the Germans to win medals for his country, America. So see what the author writes in his story now. My Greatest Olympic Prize by Jesse Owens. It was the summer of 1936. The Olympic Games were being held in Berlin. So it was the summer time, and the year was 1936, uh, where we saw the Second World War was at the verge, which took place in the year 1939. See, but before that, before the World War II, there was the Olympic Games held in Berlin, in Germany. The Olympic Games were being held in Berlin because Hitler childishly insisted that his performers were members of a master race. So his performers were members means his Nazi athletes were the master in their own uh, fields. That was the claim of the Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. There was nationalistic feelings were at an all-time high. So there was nationalistic feelings among all the Germans. There was patriotic feelings among all the Germans that they are the best. Now see, I was too worried about all this. So I is the narrator here, and the narrator is none other than Jesse Owens himself. So he was also there as a participant in this 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. I had trained, sweated, and disciplined myself for 6 years. So he had undergone a heavy training to uh, qualify himself to come to these Olympic Games. So he had trained, he had perspired, and disciplined himself for 6 years, because every sports person should be a disciplined person uh, uh, at first, and then only he is a sports person. So see, with the games in mind, so what he has in his mind, he has only uh, games to win it in his own mind. While I was going over on the boat, all I could think about was taking home one or two of those gold medals. So what was J.C. Owens thought when he was traveling from America to reach Germany to take part in the events? He had the thought that he would at least win one or two gold medals in his name, right? So I had my eye especially on the running broad jump, and he was very much confident in winning the gold medals in his very favorite, you can say, track and field event, that was broad jump or long jump. So he was already confident in winning it. So if not the others, that he would bag the gold, but he would at least win gold um, without any doubt in his long jump. That was his surety. That was his certainty. So a year before, as a sophomore at OU State University, I had set the world's record of 26 feet 8 and 1/4 inches. So in his national levels, a year before, that means in the year 1935, as a sophomore means as a high school student at OU State University, he had set a world record of jumping 26 feet 8 and 1/4 inches. That was his record he made in his national level. Everyone kind of expected me to win that Olympic events hands down. So see, so everybody in America was uh, expecting that he would definitely win one gold, surely, in long jump without any difficulty. That means easily he will win, comfortably he will win one gold for his country in long jump or broad jump. That was uh, thought and guaranteed. So see, so with that very thought, with that very you can say guaranteed feelings, Jesse Owens came to Berlin to win gold medal in 100-meter race, 200-meter race, and long jump, and 4 into 100-meter relay race. So out of these events, he was pretty sure that he would definitely win one gold in his all-time winning game that he made a record, that was broad jump. I was in for a surprise. So when he came for his practice session before the events started, so he was very surprised. Now what made him surprised? When the time came for the broad jump trials, when the time came for the broad jump practices, trials means practices before the events started, I was startled to see a tall boy hitting the pit at almost 26 feet on his practice slips. So I was stunned, I was surprised, I was startled to see a tall boy. There was one participant who was tall heighted, hitting the pit at almost 26 feet on his practice trials only. So he was practicing for the event, and he was almost jumping 26 feet, and that was the personal record of Jesse Owens in his own national levels. So he was very shocked to see the tall boy jumping almost his recorded feet. He turned out to be a German named Leslong. So who he was, the tall heighted boy, he was named Leslong, and he was from Germany, right? I was told that Hitler had kept him under wraps, and I was told that Adolf Hitler, the Nazi leader, had kept him under wraps means under cover, evidently hoping to win the jump with him. Evidently means clearly. So he was kept hidden. Razlan was kept hidden by uh, the Germans because they wanted to show him, they wanted to produce him at the time when it is needed, and like easily winning the medal in that event. That's why they had put him undercover, right? I guess that if Long won, it would add some new sport to the Nazis' Aryan superiority there. Now, if the German wins there in the favorite game of Jesse Owens, then it would definitely add a superiority among the Nazis. After all, I'm a Negro, and after all, Jesse Owens was an African, right? And you know how the Africans suffered. Many of the writings are there, written by the writers and the poets about the differences in the uh, races, right? And Jesse Owens was a Negro, he was an African, so no doubt he would be dominated by the um, by the whites. Anyway, so see, a little hot under the collar about Hitler's ways, I determined to go out there and really show Der Führer and his master race who was superior and who wasn't. Now, within no time, this event is going to get scheduled. And you see, uh, the the coach of Leslon, Der Führer, he was very determined to win uh, the gold for his country, and it would come through Leslong, the tall, heighted boy who practiced, and in the practice jump only he was about to reach the best record of Jesse Owens, right? But very soon it is going to bring the difference. Now who is going to win and who is going to lose? Now see, an angry athlete is an athlete who will make mistake, as any coach will tell you. Now I see the teachings of the coaches all over the world uh, in their own events. The coaches, they always instruct their learners that an angry athlete is an athlete who will make mistakes. So, an athlete who remains or who has uh, lost his temper, right, he will make plenty of mistakes. That's why it is advised that an athlete has to remain cool and calm, so that being cool and calm, one can concentrate on what his um, games are or his events are. Thus, Jesse Owens understood his coach's instructions. Now, see, I was no exception. On the first of my three qualifying jumps, I leaped from several inches beyond the takeoff board for a foul. I see. Now, what happened the next day? The event started, long jump or broad jump started, and as you know that each participant is given three trials to get qualified for the next round. So here, Jesse Owens jumped, leaped means jumped from several inches beyond the takeoff board. So he uh, um, did mistake because there was some fault in his takeoff, and that was the reason why he used two faults out of three were uh, declared foul. Right now, he is left with only one chance to get qualified for the uh, next day's heat or to his promotion. So see, on the second jump, I fouled even worse. So the first was a foul. The second was even worse than the first one. Now it is liable that the third attempt would decide uh, what would happen to Jesse Owens, right? Did I come 3,000 miles for this? Now Jesse Owens began to think, did I travel 3,000 miles from America to reach here Berlin just to make mistake, right? I thought bitterly. I was very much unpleasant with my first two performances that I made, that both of my jumps were considered faults. Now see, to foul out of the trials and make a fool of myself. So this foolishness in the athlete's part, because he has practiced, he has trained, he has perspired, he has given whatnot for making himself to what he is today. And then you see, and at the time when it is needed, and you become fool and do mistakes, right? That was what here Jesse Owens felt. Now see, walking a few yards from the pit is uh, the long jump where you jump. I kicked disgustedly at the dirt, so I was very much disgusted. I was angry, and when I uh, returned after jumping the second jump, I kicked the dirt. I showed my anger. I showed my disappointment of what mistake I have done myself, right? Because it is the mistake of none. I jumped um, in my miscalculation, and that was the reward I got. And this is my own mistake. I can't blame anyone. Now see, suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder. So when he was returning after having the fault of the two jumps he made, he suddenly felt someone's hand rested on his shoulder from behind. I turned to look into the friendly blue eyes of the tall German broad jumper. When I turned back to see who it was, right, and I found a tall German who with blue eyes. He was a German athlete, was my rival, was my competent jumping in the same event. He had easily qualified for the finals on his first attempt. So he has easily qualified. He did his best and proven his best, and he's already selected and qualified for the finals that is going to be held the next day. He offered me a firm handshake. So he introduced himself to me with his handshake. I shook hands with him. That was the first meeting between we two of us. Then see, Jesse Owens, I'm Long. So he then introduced himself, who he was. He was Long, he told, right? Naming me. I don't think we have met. And he told me that we haven't met earlier before, right? He spoke English well, though with a German twist on it. So he spoke English well, though there was a German accent in his spoken words, English words, right? Glad to meet you, I said. Then I also replied back. Uh, I also said, I'm very happy to meet you, right? At least, okay, he is my rival in the same event that he is um, jumping for his best. Then, trying to hide my nervousness, I added, how are you? And I was quite unpleasant with my own jumps that I made, and I was quite nervous now what is going to happen to me uh, in the last jump that I'm left with. So I was quite nervous. So, trying to erase my nervousness, I then asked him, how are you? I asked as long. I'm fine, he told me. The question is, how are you? And he instead of it told me, it is not a question on how I am. The question is how you are. Laslong instead asked Jesse Owens how he was. What do you mean? I asked. Then I was quite surprised, and then I asked, what do you mean? Because it was quite pinching the way how he asked me how I was. Then I asked, something must be eating you, he said. And then he told me, Laslong told me, something must be troubling you. Something must be eating you. Eating you means troubling you or irritating you, right? He told. Proud the way foreigners are when they have mastered a bit of American slang, and he spoke in a way that how the Americans normally use their language, their English words in a similar context. Here, Laslong spoke to me very proudly. You should be able to qualify with your eyes closed. And he told me that you should be very able to qualify with your eyes closed because your name is known to everyone, Jesse Owens. And here, a kind of source of inspiration here has long um, boosted um, Jesse Owens, trying to go back to his historical factor, telling that you must be easily qualified in this event because this is your event. Long jump is your event. Here he pinched him. Believe me, I know it, I told him. And it felt good to say that to someone. And here Jesse Owens said, believe me, I know it. So he said, okay, yes, personally, I know it. And it felt good, at least somebody's asking me about it. And I was also quite happy because I was needing someone who could listen to me when I was doing the mistakes myself. Because two out of three already declared faults, right? They were foul jumps, and now I'm left with only one. So at least I am here to share some of my weaknesses with my fellow being. So he felt quite relaxed. Now see, for the next few minutes we talked together. So after a few minutes, both of them began to talk to each other as if they were friends since long years back. I didn't tell Long what was eating me, but I didn't tell Long what was troubling me, what was irritating me. But he seemed to understand my anger, but I was not in my mood because my two jumps are already spoiled, right? So I was angry myself within heart, but he seemed to understand my anger. And he took pains to reassure me, and he took pains to give me the confidence. Reassure means give me the confidence. He tried to back me up, right, with my um, shortcomings, with my weaknesses. Although he had been schooled in the Nazi youth movement, he didn't believe in the Aryan supremacy business any more than I did. He laughed over the fact that he really looked the part, though an inch taller than I, he had a lean, muscular frame. Now you see, so how was Leslong in his description, in his look? Leslong was an inch taller than Jesse Owens was, and he was lean and lanky, bony fellow. He was slim-figured uh, person, but muscular frame. But he was physically fit and fine. Clear blue eyes. He had blue eyes, the German eyes, blonde hair, uh, you can say golden hair, and or brownish hair, and strikingly handsome, chisel face. But his face was as if um, Michelangelo has made it using the small hammer and chisel. So it was a very well cut face, very handsome look. Was Laszlo. Finally, seeing that I had calmed down somewhat, he pointed to take off board, and then finally he suggested me a few of the tips that what I should do in my third jump. And seeing that, I had calmed down, and seeing him, meeting him, talking to him, I got released from my anger. I was now calmed. He pointed to take off the board, and he pointed towards the starting point, right? What I should do there. Look, he said, he suggested what I should do there. Why don't you draw a line a few inches in back of the board and aim at making your takeoff from there? So he asked me, this is the takeoff. This is the point from where you have to start your run. So why don't you make another line few paces away from where you are normally jumping, so that you can be accurate when you jump, right? He told me. You will be sure not to foul, and you certainly ought to jump far enough to qualify. And if you do this, you will be sure to get qualified, right, for the next day's final match. And indeed, you have to jump far off to get qualified even. Now see, what does it matter if you are not first in the trials? Even if today you stood first in your trials, it doesn't matter, because what matters is tomorrow's schedule, because tomorrow is the finals. And if you win it, you get gold. And today, if you win it, if you stand first, and there's no gold, there's no reward, you are only promoted for the next days. I mean, your event. Now see, tomorrow is what counts. So tomorrow is more important than what today is, he told, right? Leslong told Jesse Owens. So that was a moral boosting up, a mustering up came from Leslong, who was equally a competent in the same event. Now you see, right? Generally, what happens when one is competing with the other in the same event, you are jealous. You don't try to teach the other what his faults are, so that he gets improved, and he wins over you. So that is normally not done. But here you see, Leslong not only was a handsome looking guy, but at the same time he was handsome in his mind, because he knew that what mistake Jesse was doing, and he tried to correct it. And that is what he's going to bring up next. Now see, suddenly all the tension seemed to ebb out of my body. Ebb out means flew away. Suddenly all my tensions flew away from me, as the truth of what he said hit me. Because whatever he told me, that rightly hit on my heart and my brain and my mind. Yes, this is what my mistake was. Now see, confidently, I drew a line a full foot in back of the board and proceeded to jump from there. And confidently, I went and drew another line at the back of the board. And from there, I took my run and then jumped. Now what happened? See, I qualified with almost a foot to spare. Now see, I qualified with almost a foot to spare. That means I qualified more than 1 foot, right? That I needed to get qualified. So that was the victorious moment for me to get qualified for the finals tomorrow. Now see, had Leslong not been there and boosting him up, giving him the confidence, perhaps Jesse Owens would have said goodbye to his favorite event, broad jump and long jump, that his country had actually hoped and waited to see the gold in this. Now see, that night I walked over to Leslong's room in the Olympic Village to thank him. So when he got qualified for the finals tomorrow, so he went to meet Leslong in his room in the Olympic Village to thank him for what he had done. I knew that if it hadn't been for him, I probably wouldn't be jumping in the finals the following day. So if Jesse was well known, that had Leslong not corrected him, he would have been out from this match. He would have been out from this event. So he knew Leslong's source of inspiration that he got from him. So we sat in his quarters and talked for 2 hours. So I went to meet him. There we sat for 2 hours talking to each other, and about track and fields. We talked about track and fields, the games and sports that we play, ourselves. We talked about ourselves, who he was, who I was, the world situation. We talked about the world situation, what is going on, because I already said that was 1936. Olympic Games, and in 1939, Second World War took place. So they talked about the world situation, a dozen other things, and many other things they discussed each other, right? When I finally got up to leave, we both knew that a real friendship had been formed. And when it was time for Jesse to now take leave, both of them felt that they had this friendship since long, long years. That was the feeling between the two, right? So see, within no time, how good friends they had become to one another. So see, Luz would go out to the field the next day trying to beat me if I could. Luz Long, who is going to appear in the field the next day, is going to try his best to win the medal for his country. But I knew that he wanted me to do my best. But I knew that somewhere Luz Long was wanting me that I should do my best, even if that meant my winning, right? Even if I was trying to win myself. And see, everybody would uh, want to win the gold for himself and the name for the country. So see, as it turned out, Luz broke his own past record. Now the next day, the final event took place. All the athletes who have been qualified to jump for the finals, right? They all lined up as per their names. Now it was Luz Long who jumped, and he broke his own past record. That means he did superb, right, at his jump. In doing so, he pushed me onto a peak performance. Now, when Laslong jumped his best, right, now it pushed me to peak performance. That means to the top performance. I should now do better than what he had done, right? So that was uh, uh, what hit me. Now, see, I remember that at the instant I landed from my final jump, the one which set the Olympic record of 26 feet, 5.5 and 16 inches. Now, when I took my jump, right, I landed from my final jump. That was the final jump, the third jump. That was the best. It was the Olympic record. And how much did he jump? 26 feet, 5 and a 5 by 16 inches. That was the best jump ever jumped in the Olympics. He was at my side. That time, Dasdong was standing near me, congratulating me, and he was congratulating me because I have done better than what he had done, right? So this is the record which is going to bring me gold for my country. Despite the fact that Hitler glared at us from the stands not 100 yards away, Les shook my hand hard. Now, in this event, Hitler was also present. Adolf Hitler was also present, and he was looking at me angrily because he had that notion that the Germans are the best, and that was why Laslong was kept undercover. He was taken out when at the time it was needed. Now he was defeated, right? So he looked at me angrily, and he had that notion that Germans are the best. Now I broken his confident Adolf Hitler's you can say the misconception of what he was thinking that the Germans are the best, and Leslong uh, shook hands with me because I won gold, and it wasn't a fake, and I saw the smile on the face of Leslong, and the smile he had was not fake, not false. It was a genuine smile that he smiled at me. Smile with a broken heart, sort of grip either. So it was not even the smile that was not of a broken heart because he really wanted me to win it. That was what happened at that moment. Now see, and that was how the event got over. So it was finally Jesse Owens who won uh, gold medal uh, in long jump, which made him the fourth goal out of the four goals he had. The 100-meter race, 200-meter race, long jump, and 4 into 100-meter relay race. These were the four gold medals that he won in this 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. Right? So that was a history. Now see. Now what does it say? You can melt down all the gold medals in cups I have, as they couldn't be a plating on the 25th carol friendship. I felt for Laslong at that moment. Now this is the remark of Jesse Owens, how he felt. told here that you can melt down all the gold medals and cups I have. So whatever trophies I have won, whatever gold medals I have won, I could melt them down uh, in you can say that there could be a plating on the 24 karat friendship in comparison with the friendship that I built with Leslie, right? I felt for Leslong at that moment. So I felt the greatest love and friendship, okay, that I have, okay, for anyone on seeing, on meeting Leslong, right? So it was far, far superior than 24 karat gold, right? When um, I met Leslong, who boosted me up morally to win the fourth gold in my name. I realized then too that Luz was the epitome of what Perry de Coubertin, founder of the modern Olympic Games, must have had in mind when he said, now, Lazlong was the epitome. Epitome means a perfect example of friendship. He was the perfect example of friendship, right? Of what Perry de Coubertin, who he was the founder of the modern Olympic Games. He founded modern Olympic Games, Perry de Coubertin. So he had founded this game in order to uh, not only yeah, conduct games and sports or such meets, the first and foremost thing was to promote friendship, right, in the world figure, to promote friendship. That was what he actually wanted to do. The important thing in the game, Olympic Games, is not winning but taking part. So the important thing in the games and sport is not only winning it. The important thing is taking part in it. The essential thing in life is not conquering but fighting well. The essential thing in life is not always winning it but fighting well in it. So that was what here the founder of the modern Olympic Games, Perry de Coubertin, had said that he has founded this Olympic meet not only to bring the you can say event and um, the athletes and sports person to be rivals among each other, but in this rivalry, right, there is a promotion of friendship, and we saw this uh, between Jesse Owens and um, Leslong, right? So this ends the chapter where we understood that we most of us uh, are in the belief that whenever we enter into a field of competition, we take one another as rivals to one another. But this kind of feelings must be raised. Rather, we have to promote that there is friendship among us, and we need to promote this friendship among we all people. This is what is told in the chapter My Greatest Olympic Prize by Jesse Owens. So the chapter told us about the personal experience of the greatest athletes, one of the greatest athletes of the world, Jesse Owens, James Cleveland Owens. Hence, we understood the chapter, and that leaves us two more stories to go in the syllabus. We'll again take them one by one and do it. And in between, we'll have the notes got and then write them in the respective exercise notes. Okay, so read this and then try to understand more. Thank you so much.